it's time for the presentations of Dr. Fisher. So please, Dr. Fisher.
Ibu Erika, thank you so much for the opportunity to present and to be part of this webinar. And really, I greet everybody warmly from South Africa, and I want to congratulate the Politeknik, for this course that they are offering, and I wish all the students well. I think we were all students once in a time formally so, but we remain students of life, and I think that is important. We must learn every day. Now the one thing that I learned, I was wondering what this TUNA concept is, and I had to go and look it up, I admit that readily, we learn everything. We learn every day, I should say. Now, it's very apt, and I want to start with this acronym. This acronym, which deals with turbulence, uncertainty, novel, and ambiguity. And I think that's going to be the premise of my presentation here. Certainly, we are living in turbulent times. I mean, we even before the coronavirus, it was turbulent. The coronavirus has just taken us over the edge. Now, the uncertainty is, of course, and for tourism, the uncertainty lies in the fact that, how do we plan for a post-COVID period? Now, of course, the priority in tourism would be to resume operations as early as it is safe to do so. And as Ibu Susi has said, I mean, the emphasis now is the new normal. The emphasis now is safety. The emphasis is health. And these are important questions as we interrogate this concept of a sustainable tourism praxis as we move forward. Now, I think that is a question that we'll leave, and I think that is a question that we can, I suppose as an academic as well, I like to pose these questions, leave them, and at some point the students or whomever will ask questions about these things. And I think that is important. That is part of the webinar, I would guess. Now, of course, Ibu, you've raised very important questions around the balance between economic recovery and post-COVID-19 and safety. And I think Ibu Susi has raised that at a different level where she has said that, how do you have sustainable tourism? It's the plastic free, it's the ecotourism. And I think these are niche markets that this is a niche market that Bali has, right? Now, similarly, South Africa has a niche market in ecotourism, and I will touch on some of that as we go along. Now, as I said, the priority for tourism is to resume operations as early as it is safe to do so. The context we have is that the current global shutdown has no precedent. It's novel, and this is where in this concept of TUNA, when we talk about novel, it is unique. None of us, no government in the world has got a blueprint on how to deal with this. I mean, it was sprung on us so quickly that we just, I think in the first few months, every government was was kind of flapping around, if you can, you know, and we kind of took some time to get our ducks in a row on how to deal with this issue. And this is the big challenge. And you know, the unfortunate bit is that I would want to argue that the first industry that is affected by something like this is tourism. The biggest effect of something like this is felt in tourism. And this is the unfortunate bit. You know, I in preparing, one of the things I want to say is that tourism is a sector that can grow quickly. You know, it's like these quick hits. You know, tourism, I mean, the beauty is there. We have to enjoy it. People can come and they go. We always say in South Africa, when you come to our natural sites, you leave your footsteps behind and you take your memories with you. You know, and I think that is important, right? So that others can enjoy the same natural, you know, environment that you enjoyed. And this is the issue of sustainability. So the sector can grow quickly, but it's also the sector I would want to argue that is the quickest affected by a disaster of this nature. All right, now, so how does a tourism sector rejuvenate itself? You know, in this ambiguous environment as this model states. How does a tourism sector? I would want to argue that there's going to be a slow recovery. There's going to be a slow recovery. Now, the recovery is going to be slow because the tourism industry, and I want to get to this, you know, at some point when we talk about a model, the tourism industry or all role players need to instill a level of confidence back into safe travel.
Bapak Ibu kelihatannya connection problem, Dr. Fisher. Oke, saya mudah-mudahan sebentar lagi bisa terkonek kembali.
Di Jakarta dia, Pak.
Oke, di Jakarta, Pak. Dr. Fisher. Oke, kita tunggu sebentar Bapak Ibu. Kalau ada pertanyaan, Bapak Ibu silakan langsung masuk ke chat box. Jadi nanti pembicara akan dibantu Bapak Ibu pembicara untuk nanti langsung memberikan respon di chat box juga. Dan kalau ada pertanyaan nanti kita masih ada waktu di sesi terakhir untuk Q&A. Saya akan undang mudah-mudahan 2-3 penanya nanti bisa bertanya langsung kepada saya checking Dr. Fisher. Mudah-mudahan sebentar terkonek lagi pembicara kita. Bapak Ibu, sembari menunggu Dr. Fisher terkonek kembali, saya sampaikan sekali lagi permintaan permohonan permakluman karena Bapak Tanto Yahya tidak bisa bersama kita hari ini, tapi mudah-mudahan beliau bisa hadir di acara berikutnya. So Dr. Fisher, you are reconnected.
I am.
Yes,
sorry.
please.
Yes, I
Yes.
don't know. I have no control over this.
No worries. It's sometimes the concern about doing virtual seminar or meeting. So then we are
Yes.
talking a lot about with the connection.
Of course.
Yes, please,
No,
Dr.
thank you
Fisher,
very much.
please. No worries.
I hope my 20 seconds, my 20 minutes have not gone wasted. I hope I'll get a few extra.
Not yet. So with TUNA, you have the ambiguity, not sure yet whether like 20 minutes or 25 minutes that you are going to take. Yes, please, Dr. Fisher.
I'll try and get through it as quickly. All right. Now, I was at a point where I was talking about I almost want to call it the fickle nature of tourism. You know, it gets affected most in a situation like this. And of course, when we talk about it, you know, we talk about community, we talk about jobs, we talk about people, we talk about sustainability. You know, and when you have a crunch time like this, it becomes very, very difficult for people to actually just live, and for governments to ensure the safety of people. Now, what am I getting at when I say this? A recovery post-COVID-19 will invariably include all sectors. It's going to be the private sector. It has to be government. And when I say government, it has to be, Ibu Susi spoke about political will. There has to be a clear policy environment, which includes health protocols, and it must include the safety of your communities. Now, you know, in South Africa, we have a very, when we talk about sustainable tourism, we have a very interesting model, and this is a developing model, but it's historically based, and I don't think there's time for me to explain the full extent of it now. But, you know, when we had the previously disadvantaged situation in South Africa where Black people were deprived, all right, of opportunities, we now have these models, what one could refer to as a hybrid model, where the communities, the poor communities around your tourist site, they are the ones who actually have part ownership in the site, and they are the ones who manage it and who also get a profit out of it, but sustainably so, which means that there's a hybrid model where it's not just for profit, but it is also that you sustain, and that people who live in the area know that this is a resource that's going to sustain them. So you have a community-based structure, and I think this is very important in terms of moving forward. We really need tourism at a time like this to, it brings us back to this question of, you know, when people lose their jobs, what else do they do? It's a question that I raise, and it's a question that I often ask in terms of how do I diverse my own skills? So if I can't do the job as an ambassador, what else can I do? So does the industry, does my employer give me the opportunity to diversify my skills? When the going is good, all right, I need to be able to say, yes, I'm a cook today when the going is good, but tomorrow when the resort is closed down, what else can I do? And so as an individual, so I think we need to look very strongly at diversifying skills, and especially in the tourism industry. All right. And this is a crisis that makes us take stock. Now, I asked the question about what opportunities in the future, What new partnerships do we develop? And in Indonesia, and I know in the ASEAN context, there's been a lot of talk about bubbles, building these bubbles, all right, tourism bubbles. And I think this is important. This is a way of dealing with safety issues, okay? And then what new products? You know, when in Indonesia, I look at, and we've been doing a lot of work here, the embassy, I mean, has been doing a lot of work in Indonesia around getting people to understand the African market. There are so many good tourist destinations in Africa. There's such a diverse range of ecotourism opportunities. It's just amazing. I don't want to go into those now, but just to mention that, I mean, these safaris we have, outside tourism, you can literally live outside, go on, you know, these ecotourist holidays. Our national parks, I mean, Kruger National Park, it's now called the Transfrontier National Park, is the biggest in the world. It's the biggest in the world. And I think what we need to do is to foster closer cooperation, I think, between Indonesia and South Africa. It can happen. And we can also establish those bubbles across our two countries. Now, just to say also that there is a partnership currently between Denpasar and Mossel Bay. In South Africa, it's a coastal town on the east coast of South Africa. Beautiful town, and Denpasar has a twinning agreement with Mossel Bay. Now, I'm hoping that we can pursue that opportunity further as a bubble. You know, as we go in the post-COVID-19 recovery phase. Now, the one thing that we also need to take in mind, you know, Ibu Erika, and I suppose everybody is listening, people are people. People are people. When we talk about a new normal, we often forget that we have to be safe. You know, it happens here in Jakarta. I see it, you know, when government says, let's open up, and, you know, now it's like, it's as though people forget that there's this pandemic that is still around. Now, I find it, you know, from a social point of view, I find it, you know, how does one go on holiday and live and be at the seaside? You are having your suntan, but you must have a mask on. You know, the scenario is almost incomprehensible. You know, so what I'm saying is that the issue of safety, the issue of safety is very important, and I don't know how necessarily do we deal with people around this issue. The issue of a vaccine won't be a final solution, but it will be some kind of a solution, you know. And I think the sooner we get back to normal, as normal can be, I think it's the best. It's the best option for all of us. I want to argue that tourism is going to be a gradual recovery, and we need to look at niche markets. If Indonesia wants more African tourists to come to Indonesia, and I'm talking about Bali, look at the African growing middle class. Look at the African growing middle class. I don't see Indonesia focusing on that as much as I would, as much as it could be. Look at the African middle class. I promise you, there's a growing market there. People with a additional income, with disposable income that they can use on holidays. And I think if Bali focuses on that, we're going to increase African tourists coming to to Bali and Indonesia. Let me leave it at that, and I'll focus on some questions if there are. Thank you, Ibu.
Thank you very much indeed, Excellencies, Dr. Hilton Fisher. Ladies and gentlemen, we learned a lot also today from Dr. Fisher about the last points he mentioned about gradual recovery of tourism, but then we have to really look after the other market, which is very potential, like African growing class market, which is also very potential. So